And now we're going to get into our final topic, which is for the NFL. This was pretty interesting because it dropped today, where COVID is still in the world, it's still affecting us. It's actually getting somewhat coming back, if you want to say that. But
Fair to say.
we've learned a lot of information. Hopefully, it'll never be what it was last year. But in terms of the NFL, two things. One, potentially, if there is a COVID breakout in a organization, a team, and they cannot find a way to reschedule a game, they may have to forfeit, which is pretty interesting because that can definitely affect a multitude of situations, scenarios for teams, the playoffs, home field advantage, et cetera, et cetera. But the second thing that came out was DeAndre Hopkins thinking that he really may retire or really contemplate what is he doing in the NFL because he may have to take a vaccine that he does not agree with, that he feels he doesn't have to take. And my opinion on this is everyone has their own opinion on whether to take the vaccine or not. But in this situation, just as a comment, if DeAndre Hopkins feels how he does, he completely has the right to. The only thing I have to say is, though, is if something does happen where he's in the protocol or he gets it, God forbid, or he's in close contact tracing, whatever, he will have to deal with the consequences. And also, if let's say somehow he hypothetically, if him being in close contact with someone puts Kyler Murray, because he is the most important player for that team, in the COVID protocol, then he is going to have to live with it and live with the consequences. And that's about it because you can't tell me whether to take the vaccine or not. But you can tell me as my employer, if you do this, you could suffer consequences. And then it's my decision after that. So that's my take on this. And I feel DeAndre Hopkins, he's a man. He's a grown man. He's a professional. It's his choice. LeBron James, we saw it in the NBA. We never knew until basically he finally said it that he did take the vaccine, that he will keep that in-house because that is honestly nobody's business besides his significant others, his kids, his family members, and whoever else he feels or deems necessary to know that information.
I mean, I'm looking at the numbers right now. According to Judy Batista of the NFL Network, more than 78% of players league wide have had at least one shot, and 14 clubs have at least 85% of players vaccinated. Palisaro reported that all 32 teams have at least 50% vaccination rate among players. So it's not, I mean, fully understand DeAndre Hopkins' side of this. You know, he's a grown man. We can't tell a grown man what a grown man can do. Right? There was the same situation last year where they're like, "Yeah, are you really telling us to quarantine and not go out when we're in other cities and this and that?" So it's not, yeah, you can't control what DeAndre Hopkins does, but I think he needs to fully understand that if he puts his team at risk, yeah, he's got to live with that situation. If they missed the game by, if they missed the playoffs by one game and it was a game that they had to forfeit and it's because he's in protocol, I don't know. Like, if I was him, I don't know how I'd feel about that. I'd be like, because you miss a playoff check.
But think about it. Think about this, because Chris Paul, just to try to make a comp here, Chris Paul came in contact with somebody. He took the vaccine.
Yeah.
He still couldn't play. So what does this really? Because if you get it, you can still give it to someone. All the vaccine does is it reduces your symptoms. If you get it, you can still give it to anybody. So I don't understand why that truly matters. Unless if you have something that I'm not aware of, I'll gladly listen. Because Chris Paul was vaccinated, he got it. He missed two pivotal Western Conference Final games. So,
but what's curious about this is like having to forfeit a game instead of, because
Well, yeah, first you have to be able to reschedule. They give you that. And if you can't, think about it. Listen, if you were able to make a whole season without any forfeits last year, there's no excuse for that not to happen this year.
yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Is like, if you could make it work last year, I don't see why it should be an issue this year.
Yeah, when it was actually crazy out there.
It was so bad that they thought about putting in that 18th week. Yeah.
Yeah. That was an actual consideration. Yeah.
And now you're saying, oh, because we had this extra game, we can't do the same thing we did last year. That's one, hard to believe, and two, it's just
they were playing Wednesday games, bro. They were playing Tuesday games, bro. I don't want to hear. They're playing double headers on a Monday, so they found a way to reschedule. I think if one team, if they can reschedule, they'll make it happen. They're not gonna. I see you are either saying it. I just don't think it'll ever happen because then you're gonna have teams being like, "Oh my god," you may have lawsuits or God knows what conspiracy theories going on, especially depending on who. Let's say the New England, for example, has a forfeit. And we've already seen what happened with New England with the whole Deflategate shit. Those conspiracy theories will go crazy.
Yeah, I think a lot of things that they say don't make sense. It's easy to work. We've seen it work out. So I don't see why they all of a sudden be like, yeah, you might have to forfeit a game if we can't reschedule. Like,
I guess it's maybe like a threat so they, take it seriously.
But haven't they taken it seriously enough? I just read off those stats where 14 of the 14 teams have had at least 85% of their players vaccinated. And 78% of all players in the NFL have had at least one shot. You're still 22% of people don't. Of players don't. Like, you've done your part, and these players have done their part to play in this game. And if some players don't want to get vaccinated, I don't see why the NFL has to be all of a sudden be like, hey, we need you to take this shot. If something happens, your team has to forfeit.
I think it's only going to be a forfeit if they have with the Baltimore Ravens situation where they basically have 15 players missing the game. So yeah, I see what you're saying.
Exactly. It's just like, now it's like, but you've had these rules put in place where it's got to be, what was it? The 2020 rules were exactly 2 negative tests 24 hours apart, and a non-vaccinated player who tested positive remains in the protocol for 10 days. Right? So you're telling me DeAndre, for example, if DeAndre Hopkins is out, but Kyler Murray is vaccinated, you're telling me on a Sunday game, if they report this on a Wednesday, he's got to take a negative test on a Thursday and a Friday. He will be able to play on a Sunday. Essentially, you're only missing one player.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's the exception, not one. It's something crazy happens, like the Titans or the Ravens, and then maybe. But I think we both agree here. It's a personal decision. It's none of your business, to be honest, because it's not a rule technique. It's not weed, where weed is banned. There's nothing like vaccine is mandatory because this is a unique situation for the whole world.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way we can sum this up because that's what we had today. The NBA is drafts next week, so that's going to be the biggest coverage that we have. NFL is right. Training camp begin next week. So the NBA finals just ended, but not to worry because baseball is in its prime right now. NFL is coming back.